Johnny gagged, and I almost dropped my hot fudge sundae. Cherry? We both said at the same time. The Socs? Yeah, Dolly said. She came over to the vacant lot the night Two-Bit was jumped. Shepard and some of his outfit and us were hanging around there. When she drives up in her little Stingray. That took a lot of nerve. Some of us was for jumping her then and there, her being the dead kid's girl and all, but Two-Bit stopped us. Man, next time I want a bride, I'll pick up my own kind. Yeah, Johnny said slowly, and I wondered if, like me, he was remembering another voice, also tough and just deepened into manhood, saying, next time you want a bride, pick up your own kind. Gave me the creeps. Dolly was going on. She said she felt that the whole mess was her fault, which it is, and that she'd keep up with what was coming off with the Socs in the rumble, and would testify that the Socs were drunk and looking for a fight, and that you fought back in self-defense. He gave a grim laugh. That little gal sure does hate me. I offered to take her to the dingo for a Coke, and she said no thank you, and told me where I could go in very polite terms. She was afraid of loving you, I thought. So Cherry Valance, the cheerleader, Bob's girl, the Soc, was trying to help us. No, it wasn't Cherry the Soc who was helping us. It was Cherry the dreamer who watched sunsets and couldn't stand fights. It was hard to believe a Soc would help us, even a Soc that dug sunsets. Dolly didn't notice. He had forgotten about it already. Man, this place is out of it. What do they do for kicks around here? Play checkers? Dolly surveyed the scene without interest. I ain't never been in the country before. Have you two? Johnny shook his head, but I said, Dad used to take us all hunting. I've been in the country before. How'd you know about the church? I got a cousin that lives around here somewheres. Tipped me off that it'd make a tough hideout in case of something. Hey, Ponyboy, I heard you was the best shot in the family. Yeah, I said. Derry always got the most ducks, though. Him and Dad. Soda and I goofed around too much. Scared most of our game away. I couldn't tell Dolly that I hated to shoot things. He'd think I was soft. That was a good idea. I mean, cutting your hair and bleaching it. They printed your descriptions in the paper, but you sure wouldn't fit 'em now. Johnny had been quietly finishing his 5th barbecue sandwich, but now he announced, We're going back and turn ourselves in. It was Dolly's turn to gag. Then he swore a while. Then he turned to Johnny and demanded, What? I said we're going back and turn ourselves in, Johnny repeated in a quiet voice. I was surprised but not shocked. I had thought about turning ourselves in lots of times, but apparently the whole idea was a jolt to Dallas. I got a good chance of being let off easy, Johnny said desperately, and I didn't know if it was Dolly he was trying to convince or himself. I ain't got no record with the fuzz, and it was self-defense. Ponyboy and Cherry can testify to that. And I don't aim to stay in that church all my life. That was quite a speech for Johnny. His big black eyes grew bigger than ever at the thought of going to the police station, for Johnny had a deathly fear of cops, but he went on. We won't tell that you helped us, Dolly, and we'll give you back the gun and what's left of the money and say we hitchhiked back so you won't get into trouble, okay? Dolly was chewing the corner of his ID card, which gave his age as 21 so he could buy liquor. Sure you want to go back? Us greasers get it worse than anyone else. Johnny nodded. I'm sure. It ain't fair for Ponyboy to have to stay up in that church with Derry and Soda worrying about him all the time. I don't guess... He swallowed and tried not to look eager. I don't guess my parents are worried about me or anything. The boys are worried, Dolly said in a matter-of-fact voice. Two-Bit was going to go to Texas to hunt for you. My parents, Johnny repeated doggedly. Did they ask about me? No, snapped Dolly. They didn't. Blast it, Johnny. What do they matter? Shoot, my old man don't give a hang whether I'm in jail or dead in a car wreck or drunk in the gutter, and that don't bother me none. Johnny didn't say anything, but he stared at the dashboard with such hurt and bewilderment that I could have bawled. Dolly cussed under his breath and nearly tore out the transmission of the T-Bird as we roared out of the Dairy Queen. I felt sorry for Dolly. He meant it when he said he didn't care about his parents. But he and the rest of the gang knew Johnny cared and did everything they could to make it up to him. I don't know what it was about to Johnny. Maybe that lost puppy look, and those big scared eyes were what made everyone his big brother. But they couldn't, no matter how hard they tried, take the place of his parents. I thought about it for a minute. Derry and Soda Pop were my brothers, and I loved both of them, even if Derry did scare me. But not even Soda could take Mom and Dad's place. And they were my real brothers, not just sort of adopted ones. No wonder Johnny was hurt, because his parents didn't want him. Dolly could take it. Dolly was of the breed that could take anything, because he was hard and tough. And when he wasn't, he could turn hard and tough. Johnny was a good fighter and could play it cool, but he was sensitive, and that isn't a good way to be when you're a greaser. "Blast it, Johnny," Dolly growled as we flew along the red road. "Why didn't you think of turning yourself in 5 days ago? Would have saved a lot of trouble." "I was scared," Johnny said with conviction. "I still am." He ran his finger down one of his short black sideburns. "I guess we ruined our hair for nothing, Ponyboy." "I guess so." I was glad we were going back. I was sick of that church. I didn't care if I was bald. Dolly was scowling, and from long and painful experience, I knew better than to talk to him when his eyes were blazing like that. I'd likely as not get clobbered over the head. That had happened before, just as it had happened to all the gang at one time or another. We rarely fought among ourselves. Derry was the unofficial leader, since he kept his head best. Soda and Steve had been best friends since grade school and never fought. And Two-Bit was just too lazy to argue with anyone. Johnny kept his mouth shut too good to get into arguments, and nobody ever fought with Johnny. I kept my mouth shut too. But Dolly was a different matter. If something beefed him, he didn't keep quiet about it. And if you rubbed him the wrong way, look out. Not even Derry wanted to tangle with him. He was dangerous. Johnny just sat there and stared at his feet. He hated for any one of us to be mad at him. He looked awful sad. Dolly glanced at him out of the corner of his eye. I looked out the window. "Johnny," Dolly said in a pleading, high voice, using a tone I had never heard from him before. "Johnny, I ain't mad at you. I just don't want you to get hurt. You don't know what a few months in jail can do to you." "Oh, blast it. Johnny," he pushed his white blonde hair back out of his eyes. "You get hardened in jail. I don't want that to happen to you, like it happened to me." I kept staring out the window at the rapidly passing scenery, but I felt my eyes getting round. Dolly never talked like that. Never. Dolly didn't give a Yankee dime about anyone but himself. And he was cold and hard and mean. He never talked about his past or being in jail that way. If he talked about it at all, it was to brag. And I suddenly thought of Dolly, in jail at the age of 10, Dolly growing up in the streets. "Would you rather have me living in hideouts for the rest of my life, always on the run?" Johnny asked seriously. If Dolly had said yes, Johnny would have gone back to the church without hesitation. He figured Dolly knew more than he did, and Dolly's word was law. But he never heard Dolly's answer, for we had reached the top of Jay Mountain, and Dolly suddenly slammed on the brakes and stared. "Oh, glory," he whispered. The church was on fire. "Let's go see what the deal is," I said, hopping out. "What for?" Dolly sounded irritated. "Get back in here before I beat your head in." I knew Dolly would have to park the car and catch me before he could carry out his threat. Johnny was already out and following me, so I figured I was safe. We could hear him cussing us out, but he wasn't mad enough to come after us. There was a crowd at the front of the church, mostly little kids, and I wondered how they'd gotten there so quickly. I tapped the nearest grown-up. "What's going on?" "Well, we don't know for sure," the man said with a good-natured grin. "We were having a school picnic up here, and the first thing we knew, the place was burning up. Thank goodness this is a wet season, and the old thing is worthless anyway." Then, to the kids, he shouted, "Stand back, children. The firemen will be coming soon." "I bet we started it," I said to Johnny. "We must have dropped a lighted cigarette or something." About that time, a lady came running up. "Jerry, some of the kids are missing." "They're probably around here somewhere. You can't tell with all this excitement where they might be." "No," she shook her head. "They've been missing for at least a half an hour. I thought they were climbing the hill." Then we all froze. Faintly, just faintly, you could hear someone yelling, and it sounded like it was coming from inside the church. The woman went white. I told them not to play in the church. I told them. She looked like she was going to start screaming, so Jerry shook her. I'll get them, don't worry. I started at a dead run for the church, and the man caught my arm. I'll get them. You kids stay out. I jerked loose and ran on. All I could think was, we started it. We started it. We started it. I wasn't about to go through that flaming door, so I slammed a big rock through a window and pulled myself in. It was a wonder I didn't cut myself to death, now that I think about it. Hey, Ponyboy. I looked around, startled. I hadn't realized Johnny had been right behind me all the way. I took a deep breath and started coughing. The smoke filled my eyes, and they started watering. Is that guy coming? Johnny shook his head. The window stopped him. Too scared? Nah, Johnny gave me a grin. Too fat. I couldn't laugh because I was scared I'd drown in the smoke. The roar and crackling was getting louder, and Johnny shouted the next question. Where's the kids? In the back, I guess, I hollered, and we started stumbling through the church. I should be scared, I thought with an odd, detached feeling, but I'm not.